Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. Today I thought I might show you some of the books I've come across recently that I may use to cut up in papercraft, to make journals with, or to simply enjoy and have in my library. I'll list the names and the authors below in case you're interested in sourcing them for yourselves, and all of these were found in op shops, secondhand stores, the free library, and an antique mall. So I didn't pay all that much for any of them, which helps decide whether or not I'm going to cut them up. This one in particular, called Trading in Memories, I didn't buy with the idea of cutting up, but more to read, because the author, Barbara Hodgson, talks about her journeys through flea markets through Europe and her favourite places to scavenge for antique items and ephemera. So I've only just started reading this. It's quite interesting. Some lovely pictures and illustrations throughout the book. So it's almost like her little notebook and travel diary. So something interesting, and I thought a different perspective from someone who is a fellow flea market lover and ephemera collector. So this is quite fun. This one is called An Old-Fashioned Keepbook. It's a wedding notebook for the bride. I think it was published in 1980. It is meant to be a record book for planning your wedding. And recording the wedding gifts, things like that. These pages are quite aged, and I don't know if originally they were already a yellow colour, but this one in particular is quite nice because the pages are very matte. Some lovely little images and things that you can use to cut up here. The pages feel very nice. There's lots of variety. And I don't think I would have any issue cutting this one up. It only cost me $4. There's, I think, quite a lot you can do with this one, which is very nice. So that's a wedding notebook for the bride. The cover is really pretty as well, even though it's a little faded. I like the Lily of the Valley. This one's an unusual one that you might think for journal makers, called The Painted Cake. This one cost me $5, and the reason I picked this one up is because of these illustrations and watercolour sketches that are throughout the book. So this is a really nice piece here that you could use, and throughout it there are images of vintage china and plates, but also the watercolour images that the author uses to paint onto the cakes herself. And so some really pretty spreads here with, you know, different kinds of images and things that are already collaged for you. Some of her notebooks here. And then obviously some illustrations and photos of the cakes that she makes, but some really, really pretty pages throughout. So I try to have a look through, and if there are quite a few pages that I see and think, oh, I could use that, I'll pick it up. Sorry for the lighting, it's really dark here today. Lots of shadows. So, quite a nice book. I wouldn't have any issue cutting this one up. Some of you may have seen these ones. These were released by Frankie magazine quite a few years ago. I think I paid a couple of dollars for each of them. I really like the covers of these ones, which you can use to make your own journal cover. And there's some note paper in the back, but throughout it are some kind of old-fashioned recipes on vintage linens and tablecloths. So, you know, quite some pretty illustrations and photos here. The pages are kind of glossy. And the afternoon tea one, I really love the cover of this. And the bonus is that you get the fold out as well. And very similar vintage images, linens and tablecloths. So this one is probably less versatile for the pages. I mean, you might not think that's a particularly interesting image or a nice image, but maybe you would use the sections above and below it in tags or on pages. Maybe you could turn these pages into envelopes. That might work. One I found quite recently, which I paid $5 for, is a really lovely book called Collecting Ladies, and it's about women botanical artists. Now, the pages in this book are very glossy. However, there are quite a few images of botanical paintings and prints, and they are all throughout this book. Gorgeous botanical images, illustrations, lots of pages, and smaller images that you can use to cut up for tags, full page spreads, or just something to enjoy looking through. You could cut these out. I really like the little labels that they have under each of these images. So this one is filled with gorgeous florals and is a really lovely book. I don't know if I would cut this one up. I think I would just enjoy having it in my library. So this one's a really lovely one. A lot of you have probably seen this one called Granny Chic. I actually found this one in the free library. So this was a fantastic find. And it has gorgeous photos of vintage linens and wallpapers and a whole bunch of gorgeous pages to use. If I had a second copy of this one, I would cut it up. The fact that I only have the one makes me more hesitant to do that. And I've looked online for other versions and they're really quite expensive. So I think I'm just enjoying having this one at the moment. These pages are really lovely and matte, have a nice weight to them. Lots of fun. A great book to have if you can find it. Another one that I found not too long ago is called Like Grandma Used to Make, and it's a recipe book, but in it again lots of photos of vintage china and utensils, linens, and what I really love about this is the photos. Lovely style. The pages are matte. There's lots of lovely things that you can use around the borders, but also each of the pages have a text block which is bordered in this little scallop design. So you could cut these out, use the whole page, and maybe use this section as a frame for your own photos or your own images that you use in a journal. So I think there are lots of nice recipes in this book, but also gorgeous photos and pages to use. And I think there's a lot of things that you could pull out of this book. So even things like these small photos sections here. Maybe you could use some of the recipes. But I just think things like this are really gorgeous. Will I cut this one up? Maybe. I think because it's a recipe book, I'm more inclined to cut it up because I don't usually keep recipe books or cook from them. Even though I seem to have a lot of them, I think I've been gifted some. I tend to go to the internet if I'm looking for a recipe. This was a really nice find, and I hadn't heard of this book before I found it. One of the paper books that I found, I paid quite a bit more for this one. I think this one was $20, but I don't plan on cutting this one up at all. This one will stay in my library for me to enjoy. It's called Paper Bliss by Skye Rogers, and it is filled with beautiful pages which are all matte, giving you ideas on paper crafts and examples of vintage ephemera, how to make notebooks, and I just love the style of each of the pages. They're all beautifully collaged, and even things like this with, you know, the old sticky tape, I think is gorgeous. So this is a really lovely, fun book. Even if you don't plan to make any of the paper crafts inside the book, just to enjoy having it. Maybe you are brave enough to cut it up. You would certainly have a full journal page ready to go here. Maybe would add something over the text if you don't want to keep it. But really versatile and lots of fun. Another fun thing about this book is that the cover is nice and embossed, but the dust jacket I think actually contains project templates. So the idea is that you use these to create the projects inside, or otherwise you have just a really nice piece of paper to use. This is a gorgeous design. So this is another of one of my favourite books that I found recently. And lastly is a book called The Plant Hunters. Don't know if you can see that. Plant Hunters. And it's celebrating Kew Gardens. And I'll see if I can get this in screen. It's quite a big book, as well as having lots of botanical illustrations and images. It also has lots of fun flips and things inside. So this is a little envelope, well, actually not a little envelope, it's quite big, which has some reproduction prints in it. So lots of fun. Here's a reproduction, maybe an excerpt from a book. And it has the history of plants and cultivation, and it's just a very fun book to look through. It has these gorgeous little tiny notebooks that are stuck on the pages, in and amongst all of it. There's some maps of the gardens. I'm sorry, I don't think you can see it all, but there's some envelopes. What else do we have? Some fold-out illustrations. Beautiful pages. And little tuck spots 4 letters. And so I just love looking through this book every now and then. And of course it's really interactive and tactile and fun to explore. And you forget what is included in here sometimes, so it's nice to rediscover. You know, it's a reproduction of a botanical sketchbook, which is a lot of fun. So in essence, a ready-made junk journal. This one came in a little box to put it in. I forget, I've had this one for quite a few years and I keep forgetting that I have it, so it's nice to come back to and rediscover. So this, I think, is probably one of the favourite ones that I have in my library. So I hope you've enjoyed flicking through some of these books. Maybe you have them, maybe you are seeing them for the first time. Let me know if there are others that you have in your collection that are really fun to use, and tell me whether or not you would cut them up. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.